So excited to have you, Kavir, and we'll hand over this time to you to take us through your presentation. Thank you.
Sure, and thank you for the very kind introduction. Hello, everybody. Nice to meet you all, even if it's just virtually. My name is Kavir Harry, and what I do in my day-to-day job is I spend my time helping customers on their journey to the cloud. I work in a segment called Enterprise Greenfields, where we take customers who are kind of starting out on their journey, large enterprises, and helping them kind of focus on how to migrate to the cloud. Today, the topic that we're going to be discussing is generative AI and how AWS is helping our customers accelerate and build their generative AI applications at scale. So there's a couple of topics that we're going to cover today. The first one is just around where does AWS fit into, and Amazon fit into the machine learning space? And, you know, where have we come from? What kind of learnings do we have in that space? And then we're going to talk about making generative AI straightforward. And then at the end of the talk, how can you as a user get started to leverage generative AI? So if we think of machine learning today, right, we talk about it being at an inflection point. What this means is that we are kind of at what I would say is at the start of a revolution within the machine learning space. And that's been accelerated by generative AI and large learning machine models. What these large learning machine models provide us is with a new way to interact with the trained machine learning models of the past. And just recently, generative AI applications have captured everyone's attention, right? Everybody knows about ChatGPT and how they're being truly influential in helping customers change their user experience, building new and innovative ways to change business models. And Ada and Amazon has been at the forefront of a lot of these kind of changes for the last 20 years, driving a lot of these machine learning innovations. So if we think of some of the things that Amazon has done in this space, we'd start off with the Amazon.com retail website, where, you know, we pioneered a lot of the personalization of recommendations for users. So when you went to the Amazon website, knowing what else would you need, those kind of recommendations and personalization was something that Amazon pioneered. If you look in our logistics space in terms of how to optimally do logistics and distribution, we sent 1.6 million packages every day. And we've, you know, if you think of Amazon Prime, Amazon Go, a lot of the intelligence around those things were driven from machine learning models that were built, operated, and run on AWS today. Then I think the most famous of all of these is the Amazon Alexas. You know, they're in millions of homes around the world. And a lot of the natural language, the natural language models that have been built around that help customers build new user experiences around the Alexa. So all the interactions with your smart devices in your homes, getting information, whether it be on entertainment, on ordering Uber rides, all of those things are done through Alexas today. And then specifically around the Prime Air, which we pioneered around the delivery systems of using drones for delivery, and all the all the selections and navigations that need to be done around that are all driven by Amazon's machine learning. If we look at some of the customers, Amazon has a significant customer base that's been doing this. We've got over 100,000 customers of all sizes and in all different industries and verticals where customers are developing new and innovative ways to delight their customers. So if you think about the broadest and deepest set of AI portfolio and machine learning services, that's where Amazon plays. We've I think it's yesterday, Amazon announced $100 million investment in a machine learning innovations, machine learning and AI innovation studio. So we're going to be extending how we help our customers around leveraging machine learning and generative AI. We've developed Amazon's SageMaker Studio, which helps developers train, build, and deploy models on AWS. We've also have a wide range of different use cases and APIs to make it easy for customers to leverage machine learning on AWS, and I'm going to dive into a lot more detail on this. But what has Amazon done besides having the broadest capabilities around this? So many of you will know about the Amazon Deep Racer, which was a platform for people to learn around how to do machine learning training for the Amazon Deep Racer cars, which you could then train and race around the track. Today, the Amazon Deep Racer League is quite extensive. We've educated more than 320,000 developers, and that's spread across 160,000 countries. We also have a lot of training and certification to help users navigate through the journey of getting trained on AI and ML, but also around getting certifications around that for jobs, which also help individuals like these on these user groups. Over and above that, we've got the AI and ML scholarships, which we've extended through Intel and Udemy to educate over 21,000 individuals on that space. All right. Now on to the fun stuff. So what is generative AI? Right? If we think of what generative AI is generative AI is a type of content creation, including new conversations, stories, images, videos. Like all AI, generative AI is powered by the machine learning models and the very large models that are pre-trained on vast amounts of data and commonly referred to as foundational models, right? In recent advancements with large language models have allowed for these types of content to be created by these type of new content creation ideas to be accelerated using the transformer-based neural network architectures in context with learning and emerging behaviors for very large models. The rise of the new foundational models, which basically are trained on billions of parameters, have allowed for the extension of generative AI. So what is AWS doing with generative AI? So there's a couple of different offerings that AWS has. The first is we have Amazon Bedrock, which is the easiest way to build and generate applications, leveraging some of the large foundational models that are made available by some of AWS's partners. So if you think of AI 21 Labs, Anthropic, Stable AI, and Amazon's own AI models. Over and above that, we've got Amazon's EC2 Trainium instances and Amazon's EC2 inference inferentia instances that, combined with EC2 ultra clusters, allow for both speed to allow for training the data set, but also for leveraging the trained models for embedding within your application space. And last, we have Amazon Code Whisper, which is an AI coding companion that helps customers develop and build applications more securely and faster on AWS. I'm going to stop here and just maybe pause for a quick interaction with people. Is anybody doing anything today on AWS in the generative AI space? Okay, I think maybe a lot of the people are on Twitch streams, so maybe I'll just continue on this. So if we kind of dial it back one step, Nick, do you maybe have a question?
Maybe I have a question for later. But sure. I'm in the AWS space, mostly from a consulting point of view, and like the main question I get from clients, like when they talk about generative AI and their understanding of it is more, AI generating pictures, generating music and stuff like that. Do you have any actual business cases where generative AI is actually solved a customer problem that you can use as an example?
Sure. So actually, that's the next slide. So I'll get to it shortly.
Okay, cool.
All right. So yeah, where does AI fit in, right? If you think of AI as a way to if we just think of what AI was what most people think of artificial intelligence is around general artificial intelligence, right? And that's a way to describe systems that replicate tasks that human beings do. Most of the tasks that we see today is a subset of what we call generative artificial intelligence, and that leverages machine learning, right? But the machine learning that we leverage is using some sort of patterns and leverages of, and is built using large data sets that we've trained the data set on today, right? And then we get to the subset of deep learning, right? Which is basically not only training the data on the typical machine learning models based on heuristics and data set, but also using the machine learning to be able to do prediction on some parts, or leveraging the neural networks within the machine learning space, right? So if you look at it for things like speech and image recognition, deep learning allows for to replicate a lot of the complex human brain functionality that we as human beings do today. Then we've got the generative AI models, right? And there it's around how do we take those large language models and overlay that with a lot of the deep learning neural network models, which are then referred to as what we call the foundational models, right? I think the next question, where are we seeing generative AI applications, right? So I think one of the key ones today and the most common ones with the use cases around things like chat GPTs, around chatbots, right? So if you think of customers today who have contact center solutions, right? So where you have a call center, someone calls in, or a call center that's chat-based, how do you leverage generative AI to give better responses to those to customers based on the context and learnings of your data sets? So that's one very common use case. Another one is within the health and media space. So like if we think in healthcare, generative AI is being used to be able to do a lot of training around different types of proteins, and how they kind of do that at a very, very high level is that you can synthesize large different types of images for data set training. And that's where you're leveraging the AI to actually generate some of the imaging that you can then use as a training data set to identify different types of problems within the medical space. If we think about autonomous vehicles, you can run large kind of different simulations based on different scenarios that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do without generating those types of content. So those are just a few of the examples. The other one that's very common is obviously within the fraud detection space. And there again, it's using it to generate synthetic data sets that you can then use to predict certain types of fraud behaviors. I don't know if that answers your question, Nick. Those are just some of the use cases. We've got quite an extensive set, and you're more than welcome to reach out afterwards around that.
Yeah, it does, yeah.
So what are we seeing with these foundational models, right? The first and kind of most common use cases that we see is around summarization, right? So you've got a bit of content, you want to summarize it, you want to kind of just get the gist of what's within a set of text, and how do you leverage a foundational model to be able to provide some of that capability. And a simple example would be where we see it very commonly used is in the education space, where people have to go through large amounts of research to be able to understand a specific area of domain of expertise. And what they leverage is the foundational models to be able to summarize some of that content and simplify just enough of the information required for learning. The other one is around text to embeddings. And if you think about what we're trying to do, the large language model compares the input text, like what the user types into a search bar for things like product recognition. And there it's about relating it to what some of those categories would be that the user would search for. So like as the user starts to type hand soap in this particular example that we've got on there, it could say the type of things that would be in the embeddings that could be next is a refill, a dispenser, antibacterial, any of those type of embeddings that we have. And then the last type of foundational models are these multimodal models. And the most commonly and well-known one is around image creation. And within AWS, we leverage the stable diffusion foundational models, which can be used for image generation. But we're also exploring in few of the other spaces being sound as well. So we'll just cover some of that. So what are the challenges with a lot of the models that we see today, right? So the biggest challenge that customers have is that a lot of the models today are proprietary. And then whether the model is actually publicly available and accessible. And the last challenge that customers have is that a lot of customers may want to actually build their own models. And depending on the approach and what's available within the market, there's different levels of complexity in that space. So how does, as Amazon, what we've tried to do is take a somewhat different approach to this, right? So if we look at the size and purpose of a lot of the foundational models in this space, what the challenge customers face is, if you had to train these data sets, whether it's on text generation, summarization, information extraction, and then deploy it yourself, it took a lot of time, effort to be able to do those things. With the foundational models that we've made available through SageMaker and our Jumpstart program, this helps reduce the burden for customers by leveraging the pre-trained models, pre-trained foundational models, and help customers accelerate their journey and to perform all of these different types of tasks, be it text generation, information extraction, Q&A, chatbots. The other thing is for customers who, Nick, I see, do you have a question?
No, I'm good. I didn't raise my hand. Yeah.
Sorry, I think just on Zoom, I had a pop-up that said something, so no problem.
Okay, cool.
Foundational models can perform many tasks, right? And how do we simplify, how do we allow customers to pre-train it on their own data sets? Because if you look at a lot of the tools like ChatGPT, while they have open APIs, if you put any of your own data set into it, that data then resides and moves into the public domain. With the foundational models, the way that AWS has exposed them, we've also allowed customers to train on their own data sets and enhance the labeling that's done within the foundational models. So that provides customers with the flexibility to kind of choose the models that are best suited for customer use cases, because having just multimodal models for every use case is not necessarily the best, right? You want to be able to tailor the model and the cost around the structure of those models specific to your use case. The other thing that we hear from customers all the time is that as they customize the models, what they need to ensure is around privacy and confidentiality With using SageMaker, you can have that within your VPC. You can ensure that the data is encrypted in transit and at rest. Again, the other benefit from an AWS perspective is that we have quite an extensive set of different AWS designed machine learning chips, but also leveraging things like NVIDIA's GPUs, giving customers the best level of flexibility and choice around how to scale these foundational models. And then around the easiest way to build these is leveraging Amazon SageMaker and the AWS Jumpstart, which provides customers with access to a large set of these different foundational models from our partners in the space. And the last is around things like Amazon Code Whisper. I don't know if anybody's actually tried out Amazon Code Whisperer, but if you wanted to be able to build an application fairly quickly, as a code companion, its ability to improve your productivity in building both the infrastructure components, but also in terms of building the foundational models. A lot of the capability in terms of building those Jupyter notebooks is available within Amazon Code Whisperer. So what is Amazon Bedrock? Amazon Bedrock is a fully managed foundational model from some of the leading startups within the generative AI space, right? So you can leverage from a large variety of different foundational models. If we think of some of the benefits of why customers would use Bedrock, it helps them accelerate the time to build their application, so they don't have to worry about training the foundational model, integrating it. All they have to focus on is leveraging the APIs without having to manage any of the infrastructure and scale any of that infrastructure. From a choice perspective, we've got foundational models from, I think, 3 of the leading foundational model providers today, being AI21, Anthropic, and Stability AI. Each one of them have a different area of focus, being text generation, image generation. So again, allowing customers the flexibility and the right use case for them to build their applications on. I did touch a little bit around the ability to be able to train the foundational models and augment that with your own data sets. And over and above that, we've covered around the security around that. What Amazon Bedrock ensures that the customer's models remain private for each customer. Over and above that, customers have the ability to integrate that with a lot of the AWS's proven security capabilities, including things like private link, IAM roles, KMS for encryption. So customers get the benefit of those capabilities. So with Amazon Bedrock, we also support Amazon's own foundational models. So we have Amazon Titan for text and Amazon Titan embeddings for personalization and recommendations. So if you think of Amazon Titan embeddings, a lot of the learnings that Amazon has had from the Amazon.com retail service. We've taken a lot of those learnings and embedded that into the models. Amazon Titan's foundational model is built to detect and remove any harmful content in the data that customers provide for customization, and reject inappropriate user inputs, and filter the model based on context of inappropriate, like hate speech, profanity, violence. And here, this is kind of key around how Amazon thinks about the safety of generative AI, right? What we want to ensure is that we talk about being responsible when we build out these AI models, and that's one of the embedded capabilities within Amazon Titan. Even if we look into the other foundational models that are provided by Anthropic with Claude or Stable Diffusion, what we've done in the different foundational models that we've exposed within Jumpstart, a lot of the content is filtered to ensure that there's no things like hate speech, nudity. A lot of the images are safe for building business use cases on top of. Private customers' foundational models allow customers to bring their own data and then train and fine-tune those models based on the data that's specific to customers' use cases and the data that they have that resides within AWS. How are we doing for time? Sorry, I can't see the clock. All right. I'm going to briefly touch on some of the different training chips that we provide. So with our inferential chips, customers get the benefit of training deep learning models while saving up to 70% cost per the inference. In the Trainium space, customers also get the most cost-effective performance for training large learning models. And now with the Inferentia 2, with the customers get additional benefits in terms of the cost savings around training large language models on Amazon EC2. The other one is Amazon Code Whisperer. An Amazon Code Whisperer is the only coding companion to enable security scanning of hard-to-find vulnerabilities. We've also, since Code Whisperer can generate a lot of code for developers, it accelerates the application development and frees up developers to focus on building more solving business critical problems. It integrates with all the different IDEs. So it integrates into both Cloud9 and VS Code, which helps developers improve that, helps improve the developer experience. We also actively expanding the different languages, language supported by Amazon Code Whisperer today. So if we just look further into what Amazon's also doing with Amazon SageMaker to help customers build their foundational models, we provide the managed infrastructure. We also provide enhanced debugging tools to improve the experience, to be able to capture metrics, to identify which training jobs are providing customers with challenges. I've briefly touched on the chipsets that we provide to give customers the best price performance from an inference perspective. And a key thing that I think differentiates AWS is around the security and governance of these machine models to ensure that both customers' data that these models are trained on aren't leaked and are also done in a responsible manner. What we also have is the ability to support engaging humans in the loop to ensure that when you're doing the training, we engage with people to ensure that we're training in the right way to get the best possible experience and outcome. And that's also something that's available within SageMaker. So just around the Amazon SageMaker Jumpstart, what we make available today publicly are some of the different models. So if we look at Stability AI, it's text to image. We've got the Alexa model that's also been trained and available to customers. And then within the proprietary model space, we've got the different models from Coherent, Light-On, and AI 21 Labs. So how can you get started today around these? So with the choice of all of these, as long as you have access to the AWS console, and I'll talk about the SageMaker Jumpstart Labs that you can use to try out some of these models. And then what you have the ability is select the model that you need, try out the model, and then fine tune it based on your data set. So here's some QR codes that you can then use to leverage for reading material, but also around some of the narratives from AWS around where we think generative AI is today and where we're heading in that space. I'm going to stop here, and what I just wanted to show very quickly is there are a few different things I wanted to just showcase. The first of these is the Amazon SageMaker Studio Lab. So individuals can register for the free account that we make available to be able to get started leveraging machine learning with Jupyter notebooks. And within this SageMaker, so if you log into the Amazon console and you navigate to SageMaker and want to get started really quickly, if you just navigate down, you'll see the foundational models that are available. And if we were to select one of these models, so for example, here we're going to look at Stable Diffusion, and you just wanted to be able to try it out, you can then select the playground and get started fairly easy. So for example, here we can set a food image, and we can use that to generate out an image. And there we go. It's as easy as that to get started. We also have this available. This is also available. So say, right, a story. Rock and roll band. I think this is a Q&A one. Let me just see. Let's just, okay. What we can do is, there we go. So you can leverage these models and embed them within the application. So this one specifically is for question and answers, where the common use case where we see customers embedding this is into some of the chatbots in that space. What we also have is the bigger large language models. So the largest and best rated Hugging Face model at the moment is the Falcon model. The Falcon model is also available in AWS Jumpstart. If you want to be able to leverage that, you can select the model and you can then open that into a Jupyter Notebook Studio. So for example, I've got a studio here. And I think I've got this already open. So you can then leverage the models, all the different models that are available within AWS SageMaker Jumpstart. All right, I'm going to pause there, and then I see we've got 15 minutes, so I'll stop there to take some questions. Are there any questions? Anything that kind of jumps out at you that you feel?
I'll break the ice. Thank you for that presentation. It was quite informative, and I will definitely be jumping into SageMaker. I had used Code Whisperer before to help me write my code, and it really works perfectly. And that it saves so much time in you thinking, what am I supposed to write? Where does this go? And stuff like that. So yeah, thank you so much. I'm looking forward to trying out the SageMaker and some business cases of where I can use that in the insurance industry that I'm in literally just jumped off of me. So guys, if you also have questions or comments, you come in.
I have a question.
Sure.
I don't know, maybe I joined late, so perhaps you had addressed the issue already. I wanted to see, you just touched a bit on the SageMaker, the use cases that we have there. I didn't see, I was looking for natural language translation.
So we do have a natural language translation. There's so if we look here, let me just share my screen. There's a very large set of natural language translation models that are available within the AWS Jumpstart. Sorry. So under the Jumpstart, you could go here, you could navigate to the natural language translation models. And I think depending on what type of natural language, do you need it in a Q&A format, or do you just need it for text generation? You have the option to actually build out those models and try them in as Jupyter notebooks in the studio.
Okay. Oh, okay, no, that's fine. And you mentioned that the SageMaker is free? Or
so
is it...
SageMaker isn't free. What we do have is the SageMaker Studio Lab, which is a way for people to get started without having to have an AWS account. or require any AWS credit card. So this is just a way to kind of get started and start playing with some of those foundational models.
Oh, okay, I understand now.
Yeah. But it really is a good way to get started, and you have access to quite a bit of content within the Studio Lab.
Okay, I will explore it, and I hope to enjoy it.
Yeah, let me do this for everybody on the call. Let me just put it in the chat because that will make it easy, and then everybody can navigate to that. Yeah. Are there any other questions? Was there anything that anybody learned today of a use case or something that they think could potentially be a use case where there's a challenge that could be solved by generative AI?
Hi, Kavya.
Yes.
Yes, I have a question.
Sure.
Is there any integration with some of the AWS services, in particular, let's say with CloudWatch, so as to say, probably if my website is down, I can easily point out where the problem is without having to do a correlation between the logs or any metrics that would have been captured by the agent?
So that wouldn't specifically be for generative AI, but the answer is yes. A lot of that is around how you integrate the observability and use things like X-ray to do the linkage between them, right? Because that fits into how things like X-ray can trace the dependency on all of the different parts within the website. So let's say how if you create a request that goes from the website to that calls the API layer, that then calls the database. Those are different parts, right? And how do you correlate that information? That's what Amazon X-ray provides you, that capability, the traceability across the different parts, and then correlates how those things are related. So if there's a failure in one of those, you can kind of identify at which layer within the app stack that would be. I don't know if that answered your question, or is there something a little bit different?
You have answered my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Quick question from my side. Have you guys ever done any benchmarks to see how that all this compares in price to what Azure offers, as well as like GCP or even Huawei Cloud?
So like, again, we haven't really benchmarked it, and that's not really how AWS works in any scenario. Like, what I can tell you is that I'm working with a lot of customers who are actively building generative AI use cases. And what this gives us, which is kind of different, is because of the way we embed and leveraging our own infrastructure and chips that we've built, the cost per inference is significantly cost effective for the customers that I'm working with, right? So I can't speak for all the different other hyperscalers and their costing models, and also like each of them have their own nuances in how they cost that. But for the customers that I'm working with in the different industries, be it FSI, mining, all of those, the cost of inference and the cost of operation for the generative AI is very cost effective, because we have the benefit of partnering with the best builders of these foundational models, one, and two, because we own our own chip and infrastructure, our ability to be able to provide that is far more cost effective than some of the other providers. What I would also say is, like, it's key to kind of understand that, like, just using some of the models without kind of narrowing it down to the specific use case and which foundational model is most appropriate for that use case, there, AWS has a lot of deep knowledge in terms of how to spend time, like, engaging with customers around which models to use and how to best leverage the model to get to that outcome as well, which also sees our customers benefit in cost benefits there.
Okay, cool. The reason why I was asking that question is that I do work with a few SOEs, you know, those state-owned enterprises in South Africa.
Yeah.
And for some reason, like, my background is actually AWS consulting, and it's always difficult to bring to them AWS because apparently they feel like it's always the cost comes up, and it's always like they're in love with the Huawei stuff. So that's why I was asking, so I can actually present it.
Okay. What I would suggest is you can reach out to me after this call, and I'll put you in touch with our public sector team. There's active work being done to kind of dispel some of that information.
Okay.
In that space, and you know, we've got a lot of good engagements going within the state-owned enterprises and how we're engaging with them differently. So I would suggest you reach out, and I can put you in touch with our public sector team. They can definitely help you with an engagement and also dispel some of those myths.
Okay, yeah, I would definitely like to.
If you have any more questions and contributions, let's keep them coming.
Yeah, I have a contribution. So the presenter had asked if there are any use cases that we feel can be used by this platform. And I think one use case that might be explored by this option, in my opinion, I stand to be corrected, of course, is the implementation of chatbots that are able to do translation, because there are instances where some users, some local users might not be able to understand English. And so it would be prudent for a chatbot that supports a language translation. For instance, if a user presents their case in a local language, then the chatbot translates and sends a feedback in the user's natural language. Another use case, again, is the use of images. For instance, a user can describe for example, maybe it is something to do with agriculture, so they can describe some some crop diseases that the user is encountering in their farm. And so this issue of describing text to image, it can also come in handy. So that's what I think. I don't know if this platform is able to do these things, but from what you are saying, that's something that my mind just began to explore.
So I think both of those are really good use cases of generative AI. The first one, I believe there is one of the startups that was shared with me by Desiree is doing some of that language model translation. So that's one of the members in the community, in this particular community, is doing that. There, I think, is an opportunity for customers. So one of the biggest challenges around a lot of these language models is that they are predominantly trained on English data sets. So the opportunity that lies here is around having and building data sets that are in local languages, and then training these models with, and that's around fine-tune training these models around the data, on those data sets using the local languages. That then gives you a custom competitive advantage because you understand the local context and you have the ability to be able to train these models based on those data sets. So that definitely is a use case. On the crop identification with text to image, I think there are a few startups who are trying that in this space, but it definitely is a use case that we're starting to see more and more of. And there's a few different approaches in terms of how you can do that. And again, those go to like customized models, right? Because you may want to train that data set on a specific subset of crops, or maybe just a subset of vegetables or whatever's being grown on a specific farm, and how to leverage those foundational models with augmented training to be able to do that.
Thank you, Kavir. And that was indeed a wonderful presentation. And with that said, I think our time is up. Kavir would ask that you'd send us the slides so that people can go through them and have more time to digest what we have been learning. And also, guys, please, just a reminder, follow us up on Twitter. Our account is AWS User Group Zim, and on Meetup, it's AWS Group Harare. So, guys, we have 2 vouchers to give away today. And the ask is that you post something that you learned on generative AI, and then you tag us, and then we're going to give those vouchers to 2 lucky winners. Thank you guys for joining us. It was a blast having you. See you again. Look out for our events from the AWS User Group. I'm your host, Rutendo Faith. Have a good day. Cheers.
Sorry, quick one. Kavir, yes. How do I get your contact details?
So let me do this.
Rutendo, would you send them, or?
I'm going to do this. I'm going to put it in
I think
chat.
he was sending them to you in the chat.
Okay.
Yes.
Thanks. Thank you.
Rutendo, there's also a question from YouTube.
Okay. You can shoot. Desiree, what's the question? You can read it out.
Sorry, it's how does AWS acquire its knowledge base?
So a lot of
the AI models.
I think, again, it's for each of the different types of foundational models. So, for example, Titan leverages a lot of the data that we've built over time from the Amazon Personalize. So that's how we leverage training the Titan embeddings model. But what AWS is very clear about is that we train on publicly available data sets, but we curate how we leverage those data sets, right? So again, ensuring that the data sets that we train these AIs on are responsible, in that they don't have profanity, hate speech. A lot of those capabilities we filter from training these models. The other thing that we are very careful around how we train is that a lot of the foundational models, even we train them on the nuanced set. So like, we may just train it on academic data or specific published data sets. What we do allow is any data that customers share, and that would be used to fine-tune a foundational model, would be available only to that customer and their use case of that foundational model.
Thank you. I hope you answered that question was coming from our YouTube users. With that said, guys, I'm going to end this meeting. Thank you.
All right.